Hi there, this is Bo Nicholson from Pure Cinema, and you're listening to Snob Bo Reviews Movies. Let's talk about the much-hyped reimagining of Stephen King's book about everyone's least favourite clown, It.
Bill, if you will come with me, you'll float too.
George. I saw something.
The clown. Yeah, I saw him too. You'll float too.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing? Or one of us?
You'll float too.
Are you just gonna pretend it isn't happening like everyone else in this town? If we stick together, we'll win.
All over the world, people are scared of clowns. There is just something about them. The pale makeup that disguises their true identity, the often fiery red hair, the desire to hang around children. When you add up these factors, it's not hard to see why people squirm at the sight of a clown. We are supposed to laugh at their bumbling antics as they contort their bodies a la Charlie Chaplin, or when they honk their nose, or they reach for their handkerchief and end up pulling out a string of them. But after paper meant the tip of Stephen King's pen, clowns became terrifying. Directed by Andres Muschietti, who also directed the supernatural thriller Mama, It is an adaptation of Stephen King's 1986 novel that spans 1,100 pages that also inspired a 1990 miniseries that became a cult classic. So we have a lot of It in our lives already. What can Muschietti do to bring something fresh or original to the concept? Well, not much. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because he bathes the film in the spirit of its influences, and in those moments, it shines. This film has been marketed as a jump-out-of-your-seat horror, and in this regard it fails. The trailer wasn't scary at all, and the film is even less so, because most of the jump scares are actually in the trailer. The scary parts of the film are meant to center around Pennywise, the sewer-dwelling, shape-shifting being that mostly appears as a clown to lure children close enough to it so that it can feed on their bodies at their most fearful state. When 7 kids that are perennially bullied band together to form a pseudo-club called the Losers, they give themselves a sense of safety in numbers against bullies in their homes, on the streets, or indeed, this monster that is devouring children left, right, and center. They quickly discover that the being that is haunting them all in different ways is probably one and the same. They call that being It, and set out to kill it so that it cannot terrorize the children of their town any longer. Pennywise is front and center of all the marketing for this movie, with promises that he will scare the pants off of you. But what director Muschietti has either forgotten or doesn't realize is that with horror, less is often more. Pennywise as an idea is terrifying, and the fact that it can take many different forms is a nightmare. But put it down to the performance of Bill Skarsgård, or perhaps the over-reliance on jump scare tactics. But the more I saw of Pennywise/It, the less I was scared. Where the movie really succeeds is when it hits a more Stand By Me or Stranger Things tone, focusing on the adventures of the children, the relationships that blossom, the tribulations of childhood in a small town, the lack of support they receive from adults, and the terrors they face in the natural world, even without the intervention of It. And surprisingly, this is when the film starts to actually gain some traction as a scary film. Be it young Beverly's attempts to avoid her father who sexually abuses her, or the kids trying to defeat Henry Bowers, the local bully who is unhinged enough to carve his name into a kid's abdomen with a switchblade. These are real and true horrors that exist in the world, and to an extent, most of the audience should be able to identify with the fears of at least one of the 7 losers. So even if the jump scares aren't doing it for you, the plight of the kids almost certainly will reel you in. One advantage this film has that the 1990 miniseries didn't is that it pulls far fewer punches. Obviously the miniseries was hamstrung by television standards from 27 years ago, meaning the recent film has less hurdles it needs to jump to tell the story of the novel. From those that have read the novel, this film is apparently a much more faithful adaptation. only leaving out certain parts to enhance the flow of the film and, mercifully, leaving out the underage sex orgy that inexplicably exists within the pages of the book. Director Muschietti hasn't shied away from the violence of the story, with arms being ripped off or broken and blood by the literal gallons on our screens. The music by Benjamin Wallfish, who also did the music for Annabelle Creation, is at its best when it is not executing a jump scare, but when it is ruminating on a tense moment in the natural world, or when the strings are helping move the story forward during the relationship building scenes for the kids. South Korean cinematographer Chung Hoon Chung, known for his work on Oldboy and The Handmaiden, does well to juxtapose the light exterior of Derry and the true darkness that resides within, while the kid actors do solid work, particularly Jaden Lieberher, who is already starting to make quite a name for himself with credits such as St. Vincent and Midnight Special at such a young age. His stuttering Bill is inspiring and resolute in the face of true evil, but not immune to brash outbursts such as punching a close friend and the awkwardness of young love. At the end of the day, this film, which acts as chapter 1 to the inevitable chapter 2 where the kids return as adults, is simply not going to have people shitting themselves the way it wants you to believe it will. However, instead we have an interesting character study of 7 outcast kids in a backwoods small town coming to terms with evil, both natural and supernatural. They laugh, they fear, they love, and they grow. In the greatest adversity, they have come together to form a blood bond stronger than most friendships, and in this way, it is more inspiring than scary. It is well worth a watch, and it gets 3.5 stars from me.